Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Through the Fire and the SBN Small Business Network podcast. I am your host, Ryan Wickline, and today we are joined by a very special guest. She is an author and business owner, Dr. Corinne Auman. How you doing today, Corinne?
I'm doing well. Hope you are.
Yes, been a great day so far. So the number one question the audience is probably wondering, who is Dr. Corinne Auman?
Oh, heavens. That could be a wide range of things, right? I think for our purposes here, as you said, I'm a business owner. I run a care management agency, and what we do in that business is help families navigate caring for aging loved ones. So a typical client is somebody who everything was fine with, let's say it's mom, everything was fine with mom until something has happened, and now they're in a panic and they need to know everything there is to know about senior care and how everything works and what does it cost. And that's the moment we get the phone call and we get to kind of walk them through it, right? Like walk them through the process to help them understand like what their next steps are, things like that. So that's my business. I have written a book called Keenagers, and that's with a K. And that's really a book that has come out of working with families in care management, because the thing I see so clearly after these years of doing that is that people who are looking forward to growing older actually plan and prepare for it, and then have a much better experience as they grow older than people who are afraid of it and kind of bury their heads in the sand and go, "Oh, I'm not getting older," or "We don't need to talk about that," or "We'll talk about it when it's time," those kinds of things. And so there's a lot to look forward to. And when you do look forward to growing older, it actually goes a lot better than when you are dreading it or trying to deny that it's happening. So that's how the book came about. And then, of course, I'm a mom. I've got 4 teenagers at home. And then I'm also got 2 parents myself who are getting older, as we all do. And so caregiving and kind of, being involved in the care of all these other people in my life as well.
Amazing. What inspired you to go to psychology?
I don't think when I first went to college, I was not planning to go into psychology. I was going to be a political science major. And it took about one political science class for me to be like, nope, that is incorrect. And I think I just took an intro to psychology course that I loved, and I thought this is the path. I wanted to learn more about that, and I never looked back.
Wow, man, that's such a one end of the spectrum to the other, poli sci to psychology. Kind of funny there. Where did the current term teenagers come from your book?
So one of the things, if you just Google words that mean older adult, that are synonyms for older adult, you're going to come up with a lot of really negative words. It's going to be codger, old coot, hag, crone, witch. I mean, it's very, very even neutral words. You get like active ager or elder, which has some respect to it, but really negative words with just a few kind of neutral ones in there. And, I was trying to write a book about all there is to look forward to as we get older, and about how planning and preparing can make it go so much better. And it is really hard to write a book to help people look forward to growing older when there are no positive words about growing older, right? There's just nothing. So I was hit with this conundrum of how am I going to talk about older adulthood in a positive way? And a friend of mine's mom said, "Oh, my friends and I like to be called Keenagers with a K." And I really love that word because the definition of keen is highly developed or having a really strong interest in something. And I think that really describes older adulthood today. They are highly developed individuals. They have all these years of experience behind them. And then also, they have a keen interest in life. This is not a stage where people are ready to just, get in their rocking chair and sit on the front porch and watch the world go by. Our older adults today, our teenagers, are still working, they're starting businesses, they're volunteering, they're doing all kinds of different things that we don't typically think about being a part of that life stage. And we really need to reshape how we as a society are viewing it, because there is so much going on that isn't necessarily what your grandparents were doing at 65 or 75.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I love that buzzword, teenagers, though. It's a nice fancy buzzword that it it doesn't seem like it drags anybody down or puts anybody down or puts older people in a box. You know what I mean?
No, the goal is exactly the opposite. Yeah.
So what does ageism look like in our society?
It's everywhere all the time. So, first of all, let's just define what ageism is, because you'd be surprised how many people haven't really thought about that term or don't really understand what it means. Just like any other stereotype, ageism is bias or prejudice against someone based on their age. And we typically think about it impacting older adults, but it can impact young adults too. So, like, if you've ever been told you were too young or too inexperienced for that job or that promotion, things like that, that would be ageism as well. But we see it more often with older adults. So much so that, our age discrimination laws that say, like, you can't discriminate against someone in the workforce, those laws actually start at age 40. So someone as young as age 40 can file a lawsuit that they've been discriminated against in the workplace, because there are so many industries that are youth focused, right? They really want young people. Once you get to 35, you're really too old to work there anymore. And so if you think about that, that's a little bit crazy that somebody as young as 40 could be discriminated against at work that way, for being quote unquote too old. But more than just the workplace, it's really cultural. So ageism is anytime you see an older adult being portrayed as, that funny old man, the weird old guy, if we're making jokes about people's age, all of these things around you, in addition to all the anti-aging creams and serums and things that are around us saying you cannot age, right? You cannot show the world that you're aging. And you even see it in just what people say to each other. So, when somebody has a birthday and you go, "Oh, you look great for your age." Right? Like, why wouldn't you just say to somebody, "You look great," rather than having to like put age in it? And the other piece of ageism is internalized ageism, where we kind of do this to ourselves. So if you've ever thought something like, "I'm too old to wear something like that," or I actually did this to myself the other day. My husband really loves to go to concerts, and I like to be in bed at 9:30. And I said to some friends that I like to be in bed at 9:30. I'm an old lady. And then I thought about it later and I went, that's not true, because I have never liked going out late at night. Like in college, when everybody else was like, let's go out at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. No, I never wanted to do that. I never enjoyed it. I always wanted to go to bed and get up in the morning, that kind of thing. So, but I've got this like script in my head about old people go to bed at 9:30 or 8:30 or whatever it is. And those words came out of my mouth, even though they're really not true at all. And so that's the kind of like messaging we get all the time that we then internalize, and we start saying these things to ourselves without even realizing what we're doing.
Yeah. So how do we overcome it?
Well, if I had the complete answer to that, we'd have this problem solved, right? I think the very first step is recognizing it in your own mind. I mean, since I have been really paying attention to this in the last few years, it is amazing the number of times I do catch myself saying things that later on I go, what just came out of my mouth? Why would I say that? So, starting in our own minds so that we recognize when we're saying something that's ageist, and questioning it, going, why do I think that? Or why would I say that? I think that is the very first place to start, because it is so ingrained in the culture that once you start paying attention to it, you're going to see it everywhere. You're going to see it in birthday cards. You're going to see it in magazines. You're going to hear it when people talk to one another all the time. And starting to question that, maybe bring it up in conversation and go, why wouldn't you just say, you look great? Why does it have to be for your age? And it makes people a little uncomfortable because they have to pause too. They have to stop and go, I was just trying to be nice. But to just start to question those things, I really think we overcome it, one person at a time. That's why I go out and I give talks, and it's why I wrote the book, and just to get the messaging out, to make every person start to just stop for a minute and go, why do I think that? Is it true? And is it benefiting me or anybody else for me to think that or say it?
Yeah. Now that you mention it and got me thinking here a little bit, I can recognize it too, where I've said things like that, and like just because it's ingrained in our culture and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of crazy. Now that you've mentioned it, I'm like, oh, now I'm gonna have to catch myself from saying that stuff to make them adjustments. So the healthcare industry is really, really bad at this, because a lot of people, as they get older and advance in age, don't take care of like a lot of the needs of people. How can we prevent like ageism from the healthcare industry?
So first of all, I want to acknowledge that our healthcare workers are in the same culture all the rest of us are in, right? So they are in the same sort of anti-aging, age negativity culture that we're all in. And part of that, so they've got that ingrained in them just like everybody else does. The other piece of it, though, is they are also often, working with a lot of older people, because as we age, we do tend to have more health conditions. One of the things I find in my care management practice is, it's kind of a yes and. People have this condition and they're still doing, all these other things. So, health issues don't have to be your only identity as you grow older. I think our stereotype says, oh, you get older and you have all these ailments, and you just kind of become, we kind of have this stereotype of like all the older people sitting around talking about how many doctor's visits they've had and what hurts and this and that. and I think that can be true in some cases, but in a lot of cases it's more of a, yeah, I have this condition and I'm still playing pickleball or babysitting my grandkids or working this part-time job. It's both. But when we are in the healthcare system, knowing that we are in an ageist culture and knowing that our healthcare workers are exposed to the same messages about aging that all the rest of us are, we do have to be ready to advocate for ourselves and for our loved ones. If if a healthcare provider, isn't addressing an issue, let's say you've got an ache or a pain and you go to the doctor and they say, well, this is to be expected. You're getting older. Being willing in that moment to advocate, to say, if it's my shoulder that hurts, yes, but I've got this other shoulder and it doesn't hurt. So could we figure out why this one hurts? Or to advocate, to say, if I was 10 years younger, would you say the same thing to me? Would you give me the same explanation? And so it can be a little uncomfortable because, of course, we respect our healthcare providers, but knowing that they are subject to the same biases that everyone else has, and being willing to advocate when you need more care or you think you need something to be investigated. The other thing with healthcare workers, and I'm guilty of this too, so I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but now that I'm aware, I'm much better about it. Something called elder speak, which is when we talk to our older people like babies, where we go up to an older individual and we say, hey, sweetie, how are you today? Are you doing good? Older adults hate being spoken to that way because they are not babies, right? And we're trying to be kind. We're trying, like, you're trying to speak slowly. Maybe you're speaking loudly because you think maybe they can't hear because of hearing loss, those kinds of things. But older people should be very comfortable looking at you and going, I'm an adult and I can hear you just fine, right? Like, speak to me like I'm an adult. And so that's those are a couple of things that you can see, fairly commonly in the healthcare world that you just kind of have to be ready for and ready to advocate for yourself or your loved one if you're seeing it.
A good advice. How about for like the insurance companies and everything? Because I'm sure you run into a lot of problems with the insurance companies and wanting to provide certain services for them.
Not particularly, honestly. I mean, it really depends on what kind of like Medicare or Medicare Advantage program that the senior has signed up for. I think they all have their pros and cons, and in terms of services they provide or don't. But we don't actually run into too much, I'll say, ageism in terms of like treating things, that sort of thing. It really has more to do with the particular program that the individual's on.
Okay. You founded Choice Care Navigators, a company dedicated to helping families navigate the aging process. What types of services do you provide?
So that's the care management agency that I mentioned back at the beginning of the program. And I kind of joke that we're like adult daughters for hire, because we really do everything an adult child would do for their aging loved ones, parents, aunts, uncles, whoever it may be. So we will create care plans. We will go to doctor's appointments and take notes so that the family members get all the information that happened at the doctor's appointment. We will also go to doctor's appointments and report to the doctor, because what we find is that sometimes our loved ones are not reliable reporters, in the sense that they go to the doctor and they tell the doctor, everything's fine, I'm doing great, when they're really not. And then when they go back home and the doctor has given them a bunch of information or a diagnosis or whatever it is, our loved ones come back home and they tell their family, the doctor said everything's fine, there's no problems, I'm doing great, when that is not at all what the doctor actually said. So we go to a lot of doctor's appointments to be those reliable reporters and make sure everybody gets the information that they need. We do a lot of family mediation. We get a lot of families who can't agree on the path forward for their aging loved one. And so we're the mediators who kind of walk them through, okay, these are the options based on your situation, your parents' diagnoses, your financial situation. Here are the things that are available to you. And we are a objective third party, in the sense that we don't care what you do. We have no dog in the fight in terms of what decisions get made. We're just giving you the lay of the land, right? And trying to help people make empowered decisions so that, they have all the information that they need and can make good choices, because most people don't really consider what is available in terms of healthcare for seniors, what the options are and things like that. Most people don't think about it until they are in a crisis. And then all of a sudden they need to know everything. And so our job is to step in and say, okay, we're going to guide you through this. Here are your options, A, B, C, or D. Here's the pros and cons of each one, and try to help them make informed, empowered decisions.
Nice. What are the biggest challenges they face?
As a family, usually it's trying to come to some kind of agreement, right? Because we don't all see the situation the same way, or have the same ideas of what might be the best plan forward. Financial is a huge one. If people have not done financial planning for their elder years, that can be a big hurdle, because Medicare does not pay for long-term care. Medicare is your health insurance, and it's meant to pay for your hospital stay or your doctor's visit, but it is not meant to pay for assisted living, a nursing home stay long-term, home care, all these other things that many seniors need. And many families are completely unaware of that until they end up in this situation. And so when I'm talking to them about finances and how they're going to pay for things, they will say, oh, well, we have Medicare. And that's great, but it doesn't pay for long-term care. So financial is huge in terms of thinking ahead and planning for needing cares and how you're going to pay for it.
Yeah. So how should we rethink retirement then?
Well, my biggest thing is that people, okay, you have to do the financial planning, right? And we hear a lot about that. There's lots of financial planners out there who will assist you in doing the financial planning piece. And that is essential. You're going to need that. The thing that I think is actually missing in a lot of the retirement planning or thinking about retirement is all the other aspects of your retirement. So what is your spiritual life going to be like in retirement? Where are you going to get that fulfillment? Maybe you go to church, maybe you don't. So what are you going to do instead? Your physical life. How are you going to stay healthy and active? Your body is use it or lose it. If you retire and you don't ever get up off the couch anymore, it's going to be really bad for you physically. So, what are you going to do to stay physically active? Your intellectual stimulation and your social stimulation. Many people get those kinds of interactions from work. Work was where they were intellectually challenged. It's where a lot of their friends were. So, you leave the house every day and you go do stuff and you interact with people, and then they retire, and all of a sudden, where am I going to go talk to people other than my spouse, right? Where am I going outside of the house? What is going to give me intellectual challenge? Because your brain is also use it or lose it. And if you just stop challenging it, you don't give it anything interesting to do, that is really bad for your brain. It wants to be exercised just like your muscles do. And then that social piece, one of the things my mom said after she retired was that she didn't realize how many of her friends were at work. And so once she wasn't there anymore, it was and they were all still there. She just wasn't anymore. And that was really hard. That was a big adjustment. She actually went back to work about 6 months later, part-time, because she was like, this is not working out for me. And I think that's much more common than we realize, because we don't help people plan for retirement other than saying, get your money right. We don't help them think about all these other aspects.
I love how you just touched on like the spiritual, like working on the mental side, social, and the physical. Like you tied everything in there to be a healthier person besides just money.
Right. And money's important, but you got to think about all these other things too.
Yeah, like like you're touching on things that I don't think a lot of other people think about when they're going to prepare to walk away and retire.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're just kind of told that retirement is the goal and that it's going to be wonderful and it's going to kind of be unlimited free time and bliss and happiness. And it can be great, but it takes planning, and you have to have stuff to do that you enjoy and that stimulates you, in your mind, your body, all of these things, because just sitting around and doing nothing gets real boring real quick.
Yeah. I've done that a couple times. It's not very fun. Like after like a day or two, you're like, okay, now there's got to be something more to do.
Right.
How should we look to support people who aren't ready to retire yet and want to continue working?
Oh, I think in this day and age, many people who are what we would call retirement age, and I'm putting that in quotes, often aren't ready to retire, right? Like they feel like they've still got a lot to give. They're just hitting their stride. They're doing interesting things. And I think the best support we can give them is the opportunity to continue to work, to do things. Now, a lot of people will maybe quit their 30-year career, right? They'll retire from that, but then they start a new business. They go to work part-time somewhere. They do consulting work. They do other things. And I think that opportunity is the most important thing. So like not writing people off and saying, oh, well, you're a certain age, whatever that age is, and you should be done by now, but really giving people the opportunity to look at retirement, those retirement years, and go, I'm not retiring from life. I'm retiring from that first career. So who do I want to be now? What's this iteration of me going to be? And supporting people as they do different things, try out whatever those new roles are going to be, and giving them the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Like I know a bunch of the older people I've worked with before, they wanted to walk away from what we were doing and like, hey, I'm ready to go do something different though. I still want to continue working because I don't want to be cooped up in the house. I need to exercise. I need to socialize, and and they like to double dip. They like to get some of that retirement and then go get paid cash for doing
Yep.
other things.
Yeah,
So it's like, who's to blame anybody for wanting to do that?
that's right.
So how can one navigate the journey of caring for aging parents?
That's and you're asking me a lot of $1,000,000 questions. If I had the answer to these completely, I think every journey is different. Within our care management business, no two clients, no two families are ever quite the same. And so the biggest things are to do as much preparation as you can, and to try to get your loved ones to do as much preparation as you can get them to do. Some parents and loved ones are really open to that and they're ready to do that planning. Some parents and loved ones are really resistant, right? Like I've heard people say things like, I'll do my will when it's time, or, when it's time. Like you get an alert before it's time. But also, that sort of, oh, you just want to get all my money, that kind of, and so they're very, very resistant to making plans, to putting the things in place that need to be done. And then other families, they're ready to go. They're making all those plans. They're doing those things. The more you can get done in terms of like a healthcare power of attorney, a financial power of attorney, living wills, a will just in general, all of that is super helpful because you don't know what's coming, and putting those things in place, number one, allows you to make sure that the people that you want in charge of your healthcare and your financial decisions, that they are actually the people who will be in charge. And the other thing that doing the documents will help you do is have the conversations with your loved ones about what you want to have happen. These sometimes people think these are going to be really depressing conversations, right? We've got to talk about if I become incapacitated, do I want a feeding tube? Do I want these sorts of, do I want them to intervene in different ways? And I get that it can feel that way a little bit, but I want to tweak it a little bit and instead think of it as an empowering conversation, because the only way you are going to have the kind of experience you want to have as you grow older is to plan and prepare and to tell your loved ones what you want to have happen. Because far too many times, the people who are calling our care management practice, they're in a panic because they don't know what their loved one wanted. They don't know where the money is to pay for any of it. Is there any money to pay for any of it? And so not only are they upset that their loved one is sick and in the hospital and, something has gone wrong, but they are also super, super stressed because they don't know what to do. They don't know what their loved one wanted, and they don't know how to handle it. That could all be avoided. So making these plans, having these discussions, it's not morbid, it's empowering, because it means you're going to get what you want as you age, and you are going to save your loved ones all kinds of stress when that moment happens, because they're going to know, they're going to be like, I got it. This is exactly what they want. I know what decisions to make. When the doctors ask me things, I know what to say. I know what to do. I know that they want to move to this community if they have to go somewhere, or I know that they don't want to do that. They want to come home. I know how to access the bank account so that I can pay for the things that they want. I mean, it's just night and day, the experience you can have if you are willing to face and plan for whatever may happen. I mean, you could make all the plans and then nothing ever goes wrong and everything's great, and you pass away warm in your bed at 90 and never have a day in the hospital, anything like that. But that's not what happens for a lot of us. And the more prepared you are, the better it's going to go.
Yeah. So what would be some advice you'd give, say, like one of us who has parents that don't want to talk about that?
So sometimes they don't want to talk to you about it because you are their child, right? And there is some sort of unwritten rule that says if somebody changed your diaper, they don't have to listen to you, right? Like they don't have to do anything you tell them to do. So if they won't talk to you, I might try getting someone else and seeing if they'll talk to them. So for example, sometimes you can get somebody like me, a care manager, to come in, and they might be willing to have the discussion with me because I'm a professional, right? And I'm not their child. Sometimes a trusted family friend, a neighbor, somebody like that they feel like is kind of an equal, they will have a conversation with that they wouldn't necessarily have with their kids. And then I've also seen like having the pastor from their church have the discussion. Somehow that is more palatable sometimes than, again, your adult children. And it's very frustrating because you think I'm their child or I'm their loved one and they ought to be willing to talk to me. But sometimes because of that relationship, it's actually harder to talk to you. And so getting somebody else that doesn't have that same relationship can be helpful.
Okay. Is there anything we can do to help, like, our older parents, like, live a healthier lifestyle?
They're adults. You can encourage. You can, provide information. You can get their doctor on board with, trying to encourage healthier lifestyles. But the thing is, our parents, as long as they are cognitively good, then they are adults and they get to make terrible decisions about their life if they so choose, just like you and I do. If I decide that I don't want to eat anything but chocolate cake for a week, then I get to do that. And it's terrible for me. And I will probably feel terrible and be miserable, but I get to do it because I'm an adult and I get to make my own decisions. And so your parents or any older person in your life is in that exact same situation where you can encourage, you can talk to them about it, but ultimately they get to choose how they want to live and what kind of lifestyle choices they want to make.
Okay. What should we know about senior living communities?
Depends on what you want to know. It's way more complicated than most people think. So it's very common for me to talk to families, and they, maybe somebody's considering moving to a community, and families will come in and they'll say, "My mom needs to move to a memory care," and then when we actually talk about their mom and what the care needs are and what her memory's like, memory care isn't appropriate for her at all because she's still pretty high functioning. A lot of families think just because somebody has a dementia diagnosis, they automatically go to memory care. And that's just not the case. So there's a lot of different levels of care. There's independent living, which is like senior apartments. There's assisted living where you get medical help, right? They do your medications. They'll help you with activities of daily living like bathing, dressing, grooming. Then there's memory care, which is like assisted living, but typically it's a secure building. The doors are locked so that people with memory issues won't walk out the door and not know where they are, right? They won't get lost. And then there's skilled nursing, which is where you have a skilled need. You need to, you're bed bound, you have a tracheotomy, a feeding tube, but you have some need that requires a nurse on staff 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's just a quick overview. The nitty gritty of it becomes much more complicated because not all assisted livings are the same. Some of them provide really high levels of care and will take care of complex cases, and others won't. Some of them, will accept Medicaid as payment. Some of them won't. There's a lot of just kind of differences between communities. So if you think that's in the future, I would say start looking at communities early rather than like waiting till the very last minute, because it is more complicated than people typically think it's going to be.
So what you're pretty much recommending is do quite a bit of research into a couple different facilities and everything. And
I do recommend getting, getting a care manager or getting somebody in the field to help you kind of navigate that process, because it's simply a matter of you don't know what you don't know about communities, and it's just complicated. It really is. And so getting somebody who's got some expertise in the field to kind of help you navigate through it is tremendously helpful. It may cost you a little bit of money to do that, like to hire somebody like me to come in and help you, but getting that kind of objective opinion and guidance so that you get the lay of the land. And typically we can get things done a lot faster. Like if you want to set up tours or you want to do different things, we can make that happen a lot quicker than you trying to like call whatever number they have on the internet and getting the corporate office kind of thing. So I just think it's really useful to get somebody in the local community. I don't recommend like the big websites where you put your information in the website and they're gonna send you information for sure, but the person who sends it to you, they may live in another state. They may not live anywhere close to where those communities actually are. So try to get like a local guide, a local resource.
okay. What are your short-term and long-term goals?
Personally, professionally?
Professionally or personally, whichever you prefer to talk about.
So I'm starting to work on my second book, which is going to be kind of a how to be a Keenager book. So talking about all those different aspects of life that you and I just kind of walked through, and trying to give people kind of a guide for planning and preparing. That's one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I've gotten from the first book, in the sense that people go, okay, I get it. I'm ready. I've drunk the Kool-Aid. I'm ready to be a Keenager. Now I need like the how-to. I need the worksheets. I need the plan. I need that sort of thing. So that's the next, I think, professional goal is to, I've started working on it, but to get that out within, say, the next year or so.
Yeah. What was the biggest challenge you faced while you were writing your first book?
Perfectionism.
Yeah.
It's a matter of, as my writing coach said, we can edit anything but a blank page. What we can't edit is a blank page. And so you've just got to get it out, and then we can deal with it later. And so that is not my mode of operation. I think my mode of operation is like write something and then try to like make it perfect. So spend a lot of time editing and revising, and I really had to overcome that to get the first one done. And I think I'm going to struggle with the same thing on the second one, because I'm finding myself going, do I want to do that? Do I want to write about that? And yeah, anyway.
Well, it always says practice makes permanent, right?
Yeah, there you go.
How important has personal development and upgrading your mindset been on your journey?
I think it's tremendously important. I'm trying, maybe not successfully, but I'm trying to become comfortable being uncomfortable, in the sense that some of the things that I've needed to do to like promote the book and to promote the business, like social media posts and videos and things like that, that is not my natural state. I'm more of an introvert. So like saying, okay, I'm going to get on camera and I'm going to, give you tidbits or talk about the book or that sort of thing, that has been a real area of growth for me, because it's necessary. It's also useful in the sense that I really do believe that like reading my book will benefit people, right? The whole point of it is to help anybody who reads it think about their aging process differently, and to think about it in a positive way, as in this world that is always telling us that this is just awful, right? This is the worst thing ever. And so I really do believe that it will benefit people. And I have to keep telling myself that when I go out and I do videos or I do talks or different things, because I don't want to feel salesy. I don't want to feel like I'm trying to like, get you to buy something. I want to help. I really do think it will. So I have to work through my own discomfort of feeling like a salesperson, because that's not what I'm trying to do.
I love it. I love that you're willing to step out of your comfort zone to go help all these people.
I'm trying.
What is one book you'd recommend on personal development or upgrading your mindset?
Oh, well, of course, Keenagers, right? Like that's the first one. Another one on upgrading your mindset. Well, if you're a business owner, one of the best books I think that has helped me is Who Not How. Don't ask me who wrote it. I don't remember. But Who Not How is a book that really helped me think about, as a business owner, I can't do everything. And so instead of thinking about how am I going to get this done, instead thinking, who is the right person to do this? because it's not going to be me, right? Like if I'm totally overwhelmed, like who's the right person? And that has helped me tremendously because like the social media is a good example. I'm not going to be a person who goes and does all the posting and like, manages the social media accounts. That's not my area of expertise, right? And so instead of thinking, how am I going to get this done? Like, how am I going to learn to do this? How am I going to find the time to do it? Thinking, okay, who's the right person to do this? Who do I get that's either on my team or who do I hire, outside of my team to do these things, because they're going to do it way better than I can. And then that's going to free up my time to do other things that I'm really good at. And it's going to benefit the business and the book and all these things in general, because this other person, this who is going to do a really good job of it, whereas I'm not. And I know that. So just who's going to do it, not how am I going to get it done?
I like that. I mean, it gets you to kind of look from a different perspective and be all right with delegating something that you're not very good at to somebody who is.
Right.
And that, as leaders and everything and entrepreneurs, I think we all get bogged down with that thing of letting go of control a little bit.
Yep. Absolutely.
How can people get a hold of you?
So probably the best way is through my website, which is just my name, CorinneAuman.com. There you can find a link to the book. You can message me through the site. You can find links to podcasts and different media things I've been on, and just learn more about me in general.
Awesome. Is there anything we haven't covered that you want to talk about?
I don't think so. I think we've really run the gamut here.
Awesome. All right, final question. What is one piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with about overcoming adversity?
I think I'm going to go with adversity in terms of writing, because that's what we were talking about a few minutes ago. And it is that piece of advice. If you're trying to write something, or if you're trying to build something, whatever you're trying to do, it's just get started. It's what my editor said about we can edit anything but a blank page. Just get started, right? Like just take those first steps. I'm in a business incubator here. That's where my offices are. And one of the things they're always talking about is that getting the business owners don't have problems with much except making a choice, right? Like they have choices. Make a choice, take a step, make the decision. If it's the wrong decision, you'll find out, and then you'll go back and you'll do the other thing. But like the inertia that we feel in terms of making that step, writing something down on the page, right? We can't, you're never going to know if it's the right choice until you make a choice. And then you'll go back and if it wasn't right, you'll go back and fix it. You'll figure it out. You're never going to be able to edit the book if you don't write something down, So it's that get started. That is the way to overcome whatever it is that's in front of you.
I love that advice. I used to struggle with perfectionism myself, so I know how hard it is the indecision. Like it's got to be perfect before I can do anything with it. It's like somebody had to once tell me, it's like, just because you did it, it's imperfect, but that makes it perfect.
Sure, it makes you human.
It does. I have to tell myself that at times because I'm like, I got to get it right. It's like, no, just do it and then fix it along the way.
Yep, that's exactly right.
All right. Dr. Corinne, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your insight and your story with us all.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Well, guys, that's going to be all the time we have here today. Remember, the only way to get what you want is go through the fire.